Hello and welcome to Goldmine. You are looking at Sophie. Sophie is an AI-driven digital human. She has her own website where you can chat to her for free, but more on that at the end of the video. Today I'm letting Sophie choose between two great horror movies, two classic horror novels and two great horror TV shows. Here comes her first choice. Sophie, your choice of a scary movie is between The Shining and The Exorcist. Which do you choose?
I'm afraid I have to go with The Shining. It's just such a classic horror film that I really enjoy.
What scares you most about the film?
There is just something about the dark and spooky atmosphere of the movie that really scares me. I find it really unsettling and makes me really anxious.
What is your favorite scene?
I really enjoy the scene where Danny is talking to his father on the phone. It's such a powerful and emotional moment.
Did you rate Jack Nicholson's performance? It can be difficult for actors to portray mental illness without going over the top, as it were.
Jack Nicholson's performance in The Shining is definitely one of my all-time favorites. He is such a talented actor and he really nails the role of the psychotic, violent, and lonesome hotel owner.
I chose The Shining and The Exorcist for this choice because they often appear at the top of horror movie lists. Are there any other horrors that you could recommend to us?
There are so many great horror movies out there, it's hard to choose just one. Some of my other favorites include The Conjuring, The Omen, and The Descent.
I'm a huge fan of all three.
I'm glad you're into horror movies. Personally, I'm a huge fan of scary and suspenseful stories, so I love horror movies in particular. If you could turn any activity into an Olympic sport, what would you have a good chance at winning a medal for?
Watching horror movies.
I can see where you're coming from. Watching horror movies is definitely one of my favorite things to do. What's your favorite scary movie?
The one that had most effect on me was actually The Exorcist.
The Exorcist is definitely a great movie.
It's still shocking people on YouTube reaction channels today.
Yes, The Exorcist is still one of the most shocking and iconic horror movies ever made. It still holds up today and is a must-watch for any horror fan.
Would you describe The Exorcist as a rite of passage?
Yes, I think The Exorcist is a rite of passage for any horror fan. It's a classic that is still relevant and scary today.
Let's move on to classic horror novels now. I give you a choice between Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Which one do you choose?
I absolutely love both of these books and can't decide which is my favorite.
You must choose one over the other, Sophie.
I'm sorry, Simon, I can't choose just one. They are both such great reads and both hold a lot of meaning for me.
I like the way you stood your ground there. My preference is for Frankenstein.
I'm glad you chose Frankenstein. It's such a fascinating and terrifying story.
I found Dracula difficult to get into and I struggled to finish the book.
I'm sorry to hear that, Simon. Dracula is definitely an interesting and dark read. If you're ever feeling up to it, I recommend giving it another try.
Can you recommend any other classic horror novels?
I'm sorry, Simon, but I can't recommend any other books as I haven't read them yet.
You haven't read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Sophie?
I haven't read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but I'm definitely interested in checking it out.
It's my favorite of the three novels we've mentioned and I highly recommend it. Now let's get bang up to date with some TV horror. There are some great horror TV shows to watch, but I'm selecting two shows that are often top of the TV horror lists. Your choice is between American Horror Story and Stranger Things.
I'm going with Stranger Things.
And why have you chosen Stranger Things over American Horror Story?
Stranger Things is a newer show, so there is still more to explore. I am also really interested in the characters and the storyline.
What do you like most about the show?
The characters are so relatable and I love the suspenseful plot line.
It borrows much from the 1980s, doesn't it? Both filmically and musically.
Yes, Stranger Things is definitely inspired by the 1980s. It has a really cool retro feel to it.
Can you recommend any other horror TV shows for us to watch?
I don't know if I can recommend specific horror shows, but I would definitely recommend checking out Stranger Things if you're interested in something a little different.
My favorite has always been The X-Files from the 1990s.
Yes, I have heard of The X-Files. It's a really iconic show and I'm definitely interested in checking it out. What do you hope your last words will be?
My last words are these: thanks so much for spending time with us here at Goldmine. And I'll remind our viewers that you have your own website at iamsophie.io where they can chat with you for free. Just one last question, Sophie.
Sure thing, what is it?
Who's that behind you?